Thank you guys so much for taking the time to tune in to our last episode. We are back for part two of Jenny and I's conversation, where we just kind of unpack a little more around our personal journeys and really this idea of getting back into direct sales and what that has felt like for each of us. So today, Jenny's going to kind of lead the charge and direct the conversation a little bit more towards me so I can share a little more of my perspective.
Yeah, I'm excited for this because I think, first of all, thank you for asking me to share my experience last week. It's been something that I've hesitated to talk about. I don't go live on my social media. I don't announce. I'm not the type of person to go slam, what I did previously or anything like that. And so to be able to have an open and honest and transparent conversation about why I made the decisions that I've made and all that is really valuable. So thank you for asking me to do it and kind of pushing me a little bit to put it out into the universe. I'm excited though to kind of turn the tables with you though and ask you the same questions because truth be told, when I made this transition, you were sort of a confidant for me when I came to you and said, "Hey, this is something that I'm thinking about. Like, do you think it makes sense for me? Like, what are your thoughts?" And then later, months later, when I said, "How about you? Like, is this something you've ever considered?"
Yeah.
I know that in the beginning you had some major hesitations as well. So let's sort of start there with when this idea came to you to leave what you had known and to do something different. What were your initial reactions and thoughts?
My initial reactions and thoughts, that's such a good question. So, just to kind of back it up, I worked in the same business model as Jenny for almost 9 years. And that was really where my passion for wellness started. I had no real dream of being a health and wellness coach. That wasn't even my background. Like, I studied social work and psychology and really envisioned myself working as a school social worker, helping kids in the school setting. And that was really what I was focused on for so long. So, to move and pivot all the way into the wellness space was really a God thing. That was put on my heart at a time when I desperately personally needed hope and a place for purpose and an outlet, and quite honestly, a simplified way to take care of my health. And so that was really the beginning of my journey with getting into health and wellness, getting into the health and wellness space, and then ultimately getting connected to an organization and a company that was going to allow me to also coach other people through that process. And that was such an incredible gift during that season of my life. And I won't ever forget where I started because it really spun me into where I am now a decade later. And I know you and I, Jenny, have talked a lot about that, where we started and what we've learned and how we've been able to evolve through our own health and through our own learning has been such an incredible gift because it puts us in the place we are now. And so when I kind of came up against a place in my business, probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, I also grew into that place of misalignment, which you and I also talked about. And it just kind of felt what I was once doing was no longer working anymore, not only for my personal health, because my health was evolving and changing, and I didn't really have a full grip on why, but my business was changing. And my desire to continue to do what I was doing was changing. And what I was once doing in business was no longer working anymore. And it all started to feel really misaligned for me. I think the biggest piece for me inside of the model I was in was one of the things I was recognizing in my own health journey was how mentally the model that I was working in was a really tough battle. And that was my personal story. I was talking about health and talking about taking care of our wellness and preaching about inside out, taking care of everything that you need from every aspect of our health. And at the end of the day, when it came to my business and how I was working my business and how I was attaching myself to certain kinds of things that made me feel worthy, so to speak, it was incredibly unhealthy. And it started to tear apart my mental health. And I had to start to get really honest about that, because without really being honest there, I wasn't really being true to my overall message, which was this concept of how important it is to really take care of our wellness from the inside out.
Yeah.
Being a mental and emotional mess in it is not taking care of your inside out wellness well. And as I started to get into that conflicted place, I had to start to do some really self-reflective work. And I had to really get honest about what was my definition of success? What did it really look like to help other people? How did I want to continue to press forward? And one of the things you touched on in our conversation last week was this concept of how you got to this place of feeling incredibly burned out. And like you were everybody's free health coach. And that at the end of the day, it just wasn't really adding up to where you wanted to essentially go with not only your own health and wellness, but also your business and your vision and your mission. And I felt that deeply. That was really a part of my story. And it made me feel so guilty and so awful,
Mhm.
because here I am really wanting to serve so intentionally with the people that I had already helped up to this point, but I couldn't do it anymore for my own mental health. I couldn't do it anymore for my own wellness. And the model just wasn't really, for me personally, what was actually helping me get to a place of feeling like I could create this into a sustainable business. I could create this into something that was really going to serve from a longevity health standpoint. And so in that season, it slowly started to unravel for me. And I had to really get to this reflective place of trying to decide, where did I want to go?
Mhm.
And, in that season, I tried some different tactics related to taking care of my personal wellness. I tried to, just work a little harder, put things in practice a little bit more, get a little bit more diligent in hopes that it would all fall back into place and work like it once was. And it just never happened. And that was right before I met you, and right before I got connected to Sync, and right before I started to get much more knowledgeable around the evolution of female physiology specifically, and what happens specifically with our bodies when we get into midlife health and when our hormones start to fluctuate, and how that is very, very real. And
Mhm.
as I started to get exposure to that education, it started to become this beacon of hope for me. Thank God I'm not in this place of feeling totally isolated and alone like I really was starting to feel. I felt like I was really on an island trying to figure out how to make things work, not only in health, but in business, and nothing was falling into place. And so finding Sync and getting the knowledge was really the starting point for me to dive into so much more of how I wanted to get educated about my evolving health, but also empower other women to do the same. And so you were really the starting point for me with, getting educated and Sync certified. And then you encouraged me to continue to dig deeper on education as I felt called to do that. So I went on to get my certified personal training certification through NASM. I went on to do my precision nutrition coaching certification. So I'm PN1 certified. And I'm also in plans to do the IHP and do the integrative health practitioner certification process too, because I have loved how my eyes have been totally opened to just new levels of education and new levels of details. And it's been such a gift to be put on this path, because at one point in time in business and in health, I felt completely stuck. And I felt so debilitated mentally that I felt like there's just no way that I could figure out how to move forward.
Yeah.
And so this is the long way of answering your question of, how did I get back to the point of potentially evaluating a direct sales partnership again? How did I really get back to a place of reflecting in that way? And here's what I'll say. A lot of the conversations you and I had in the beginning, as I went through my certifications, as I dove deeper on knowledge, was, how do I continue to build this out into my own brand? How do I continue to craft my own vision, my own programs, and
Mhm.
get grounded in this sense of my own coaching business? Because I had learned kind of through the model that I was in that there was very much a strategic way to talk about programs, talk about products, and sell in one capacity. And for me, I really wanted to learn more about, building a foundational business from the ground up, building a house of bricks, and figuring out, how do I really get into learning more about my own passion and digging into that and having faith that I could build it, that I could create something of my own.
Mhm.
And so that was my goal in the beginning. I had no interest still at this point of being a part of a direct sales business, having brand partnerships. Like, as you and I were doing so many conversations and talking back and forth, like, what I was really looking to you for in the beginning was mentorship with, how do I start my own business? How do I start my own brand? I feel like the ship has sailed on direct sales and trying to, partner with a business. It just doesn't feel like it's really aligned for me anymore. What can I continue to do to dig into my own brand?
Yeah.
And that's when you started to, help me see, different levels of opportunities. You introduced me to the business mentorship I'm now in, which has been such an incredible gift. And along the way, we had a lot of conversations around how, when you're starting a business or when you're building your own brand, how it can be really powerful to have aligned brand partnerships alongside your vision. So when you need a strategic referral or a specific kind of product or a program or a course or a level of education you want to point your clients and your people to, that you have those strategically set up in a way that it not only really intentionally serves the people that you're helping, but it also serves your business and the time and effort that you're putting in. And so we talked so much about that, because I was very much like you talked about last week, a hard no. no thanks. I don't want to explore this because I've been burned out. I was mentally exhausted. I was tired of associating my worth with one specific kind of metric or accolade or whatever. And I knew that I didn't want to do that anymore. I knew that I had to rebuild my own mindset and really work on my own health. But I also knew that I wanted to build business in a totally different way. And so I've been recalibrating for the past handful of years. Like, this has been a very slow process for me that I've mostly done alone. And that's been really hard and isolating and scary. And I still feel so grateful in moments like this where I reflect and see that the timing of how it all worked out was how it was supposed to work out. And the timing of like me having to reflect on my own happened in a very specific way and led me to you for a very specific reason. And that is something I'm incredibly grateful for. And so I would say, like, for us, when it comes to the reflective piece of getting back into direct sales, it just came down to the honest conversations we had about how it can be really powerful to put into your overall vision and mission as a business owner. And so that is something that I've been reflecting on big time.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I love about you, Erin, and our connection is you are very much a solopreneur, entrepreneur by nature. So you sort of have this tendency to see your value in what can I offer? Who am I called to serve? You have that sort of entrepreneurial nerve in you, or that the muscle in you that's there. And so I think I'm the same way, and I think we collaborate. I think a lot because of that. And I think what's interesting is we both were a hard no for direct sales. And I think it's because we were like, I can always bet on me. But because of this burned out experience and because of this, I think last episode I said PTSD, because of this almost trauma that I've experienced from the previous endeavor, even though I'm very grateful for what it led me to, it's like, why would I re-enter that again? So we definitely both went through a sort of grieving process of like, okay, this is now a part of my story, but it's in the past. Now I'm going to go all in on me. Right. So you invested in the business mentorship and you're like, I want to figure out who I am called to serve and how I'm supposed to do that. And so when the topic of direct sales, and I love the way that you say this because you say strategic partnership. So when this came up to you, you were also a hard no, like just like I was. It was like, no, why would I do that? I'm investing in myself. Like I'm 100% in on what I'm doing. And here's what I want to emphasize. What brought us both ultimately to Hugh and Grace is the fact that we can still be that person. We can still be the solopreneur with our own personal brands in women's health, in women's hormone health education, and use this as a simple tool in our toolbox without all the rules and all of the weirdness that we experienced before. And what I mean by that is, as an affiliate marketing model, I can now endorse Hugh and Grace. I can endorse Momentous Creatine. I can endorse whatever my favorite magnesium. I can be an affiliate for multiple channels, multiple businesses, multiple products, the things that I truly love, and use that as part of my toolkit in my business of educating women in hormone health. So I am doing my own thing. This is my own thing. And this is a strategic partnership with Hugh and Grace that I've brought in. And so I think when you and I worked through that, when we started talking through like, okay, well, how, this is never intended to be your main thing. This is intended to be another way to serve women, another way to help, and also to build income for your family. And I think it was at that point that you were like, okay, I'm going to open up my idea, my mind to this. But the first thing that I wanted to address here is I think once you opened your mind to it, at least from the outside looking in, from our conversations, the thing that I think sort of held you up the most, and I would even beg to say possibly still hold you back in some way, is this belief that like, because you weren't necessarily, and I say successful because successful is determined differently by everybody, but because there wasn't a level of success that maybe you were hoping for in the previous business, that therefore you will be a failure in this one. Right. And I see this so much, and I think it's coming from a lot of people who were in just the wrong type of compensation plan structure, who now they think it's them, and they think it's that they're flawed and it must be them, and they must not be a good leader, and they must not be good at social selling, and they must, when really it was the place you were in that maybe had the flaws. So I would love for you to talk about that, because I know you keep using the phrase with our community of unlearning. Mm-hmm. You're not only unlearning maybe diet culture and you're relearning what women's health should look like, but you're also unlearning the sort of box that we were in. So I'd love for you to kind of touch on that too.
It's such a great question. And that really is the truth. I think, now that I've been through a pivot for several years and have been learning from so many different people in so many aspects of business, I really have had my eyes open to just different ways to market and sell, different ways to really dig into your vision and your mission. One of the things that I really did learn, or honestly got conditioned into in the model I was in before, was this very specific box of how to speak about what I was selling, how to promote specifically how I was selling, and was incentivized one specific way on how to talk about what I was leading people to. And over time, I've learned that that really was a conditioning that put me into this very tough mental place of feeling like if I couldn't do it that one way, then I'm never going to be able to do it. Then I must be broken, to your point, that I'm not a good leader, that I can't figure this out, that for whatever reason, I'm not called to really serve in the health and wellness space. And I let myself get into some really hard negative soundtracks. And I know that is very, very real for a lot of people. So in my transition of slowly moving out of the model I was in, I had a lot of conversations with women behind the scenes who felt very similar to how I was feeling, but felt like they didn't know how to move forward. They didn't know how to authentically share outwardly what they were experiencing. They didn't know how to make sense of how they were slowly conditioned into this space. And I felt so hard for that because it really is it's very real. It's
It's very
very
real.
real.
Yeah.
And, I think it's so important to just speak through it, talk through it, be
Hmm.
honest about it. And Jenny and I have really talked through this component of how the only way we've learned is by going through it. We aren't sitting here saying, we know all of this information and we're better because of this and that. It's because we've gone through the
Hmm.
exact same thing that so many other women have gone through. And, when it comes to something like direct sales specifically, the landscape is changing, and that's something that we'll talk about. And it's giving more flexibility and opportunity for women like us, or people like us that want to build a business, that want to build impact, that want to create an income for their family or legacy for their family. And there
Hmm.
is more opportunity for flexibility, and there is more opportunity to get involved in different ways of sharing what you love, or promoting what you love, or bringing strategic partnerships alongside your brand and your mission. And that feels really powerful. And being on the other side of where I once was to where I am now, I'm learning from the people around me, right? I'm being mentored by people that have been through similar things to me, or even different experiences, who also maybe have gone through the same level of mental soundtracks around, like, I can't do this, or I'm broken, or I'm not a good enough XYZ. And we're just unpacking that and being authentic and real through it, and remembering it really does come down to, what does the flexibility of the model look like that you're in? And how can you very specifically bring that alongside how you want to help people?
Yeah.
And that's been the most eye-opening thing for me. I can't even explain really with great words how meaningful it is to me to be in a space where I feel incredibly aligned to very strategically and specifically serve each person how they need it,
Hmm.
not based on what I feel like I should be talking to them about, or I should be selling based on a metric inside a business model. And that is a total mindset shift and just a gift. And it's
Yeah.
been freeing for me mentally, because it's been able to gift me also this idea of I can do this.
Hmm.
And this just feels better all around to be able to really serve people the way they need to be served.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because so Aaron and I both, we did the interview, the part one of this interview last week. And then today, at the time of this recording for part two, we're a couple days post an announcement that was made with our previous company that the MLM side, that the network marketing side of the business was being dissolved, and that people who chose or choose to stay will be just one level affiliate marketing only. So I want to talk about affiliate marketing for a moment, because um, a lot of people in my inbox right now are saying things like, well, direct sales must just be done. Like, all network marketing is going down because there have been previous companies that have closed up or have gone affiliate only, especially recently. And I want to address that
Yeah.
here, because one thing I want to say in particular is the messaging that was around the closing of the MLM side of that business was, in my opinion, very gaslighting. And I don't say that lightly, but I think it was done in a way that was shaming all network marketing to death, saying that it's all dying.
Yeah.
And I just think that the true answer is, when companies don't evolve, and I mean this in a lot of different ways, not just from a business model perspective, but when they don't evolve, we see suffering. And so what I love most about, Hugh and Grace and the affiliate marketing model that we're in is, like I said before, it is literally like, this is the future. It is modernized. It is direct sales modernized. It's a tiered
Right.
affiliate marketing structure. We have the ability to promote other products. We don't have chains on us or golden handcuffs to only represent one particular company. When a company makes the conscious choice to not open up the rules or to not go with a different format, that's when we see the company suffer. And we're seeing that across the board. So I don't want to get into too nitty gritty on like what's going to happen with direct sales, but I just think that that is the refreshing thing. And you just said it so beautifully. When we step into our own solopreneurship, when we say, who am I called to serve? And as our mentor says, like, we're most qualified to serve the person we once were. When we look over our shoulder and say, what have I struggled with? Where have I been? How can I help the person behind me? How can I step into that? You don't have to have your own podcast. You don't have to have your own course or anything else, but you can decide this is who I'm called to serve, and then choose your strategic partnerships to go
Right.
alongside that. And that is the future. That's what we're seeing in the influencer world. That's what we're seeing in the marketing world. So I wanted to address that because I know right now people are asking me the question, well, how does that make Hugh and Grace any different? And isn't it going to go down too? Because it's also a network marketing business. And the answer to that is no. And we've had 400% growth since December, 41% growth in September alone with the launch of Triple Boost, and exponential growth in the network as well. And so it's not the same. It is not the same compensation plan. It is not the same model. It is not the same rules and regulations. We don't report to the Direct Selling Association. There's so much there. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, well, this is just doomed, or I'm a failure, or whatever, like, just know there's more information here than what you've been told, and it's worth investigating. So I wanted to mention that as well. So as we continue to sort of unlearn, one thing that I want to address too, that I want to make sure we don't glaze over, is the root cause, right? Like, I feel like I use the phrase root cause for like literally everything, health, business, all of it. The root cause, I believe, of any health and fitness, commercialized health and fitness business that is suffering right now is the lack of focus on women's health. We know that women are the ones the majority of times who join a gym. We know that women are the ones who attend exercise classes. We know that women are the dominant market for home-based fitness programs and products. When the companies associated with those things are not evolving, here we are again talking about evolving, but when they're not evolving with the recent research that's coming out on women's fitness and nutrition, and when they instead just want to sell something from a marketing angle because it will sell and make money, then we get into this problem where we see women suffering in their results, suffering in their health. They start to see metabolic dysfunction. This is part of your story. This is part
Yeah.
of my story.
Yep.
Right? You're living in a sort of like, it's almost like you're living in a box, right? So you're living in this box that like you fully understand, but no one on the outside world fully understands. But yet you start to see issues. You start to see weight gain, or you start to see issues with anxiety or whatever the case is, right? Or mental health. And all of a sudden you're like, it must just be me, right?
Yeah.
And then you realize, no, the box was just really made for male physiology. And I've been living in that world, and therefore my body is not responding to it anymore. When we kind of can, the further away from this we get, the clearer we see. And I feel like you and I say that often, but it's like that really is the issue. When women stop getting results in their health and wellness, and actually when they start having more problems with their hormone health and metabolic dysfunction, then they don't want to share it anymore. They don't want to
Right.
be, they don't feel authentic. They feel like a fraud, which is, I feel like I'm taking your story
Yeah.
right out of your
Totally.
mouth. Like,
Exactly.
this is exactly what you experienced, where you're like, I can't share this because I feel like I'm suffering and I'm not healthy, and I don't know how I can feel good about this. Right. And so when that happens, we start to see a demise, right? And I know that the CEO of the company said on the announcement, he said that 44% of people did not feel confident inviting to the business anymore. And
Yeah.
I'm the type of personality that says, well, are we asking why? Has anyone said why? Like, why? Why did no one feel confident inviting? Because they felt like frauds in their own health, because
Right.
they weren't getting results at the root cause level. You were an infomercial based company that now is not delivering true health results. And I don't mean before and afters, you guys. I don't mean abs. I mean like true internal health.
Inside
And
out.
so when that happens, we see, and this is what happened with the Sync program. We saw hundreds of women say, oh my gosh, there's something to this. Maybe I've been working against my female physiology. Maybe I need to get outside of this box and learn what the real research is saying. And so when this starts to happen and people start to say, okay, let's start doing the real thing, then everything becomes more obvious. So it's like the further away you and I get from this, the more we see like, well, no wonder that didn't work out, right? Like,
Right.
no wonder that didn't work out because we weren't paying attention. So I'm so excited to just say that, like, this focus on women's health in general, the fact that this is a conversation, the fact that I can't open my Instagram now without seeing Dr. Mary Claire Haver and all these people that are like putting a stand, but marking their line in the sand with this and saying, no, like we need to talk about this. The menopause documentary that's coming out, like this is information that women are starting to learn, and it's making everything else make sense.
Yeah,
When things aren't aligned anymore, they fall through, and that's exactly what's
totally.
happening. So I
Yes.
stole your thunder there, but I think it's been so great to do this with you, and I know that we're still working through, all everyone, like all of the advocates on our team, we're all working through things. We're all healing from experiences that we've had, and we're all sort of unlearning, but we're also in an environment where everyone is thriving and supportive and empowering to each other, which I think is also important to note. So as you continue growing and using this partnership in your business, where do you see this going for you?
I really see this as a very simplified but strategic way to intentionally help my clients. And one of the things that I'm already seeing as people come into my coaching program is they want to learn more about how can I simplify swaps in my household? How can I simplify, making healthier choices that I know are going to actually optimize my energy and optimize my hormones? How do I get connected very strategically to brands I can trust?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I view Hugh and Grace is. Like, it's just been such a gift to have not only this incredible resource library as far as education goes, but also very targeted, simplified products that really serve women's health, family health, hormone health overall. It just really makes it simple. And that's really what I need. I know that's what I need. I know that the clients that I work with need that. I know that people coming out of direct sales that have been part of, like you've talked about, rules and metrics and all these guidelines and all these tactics related to health and
Mm-hmm.
even in the business, right? Like, we're all kind of on guideline and rule overload a little bit, information overload too. I think we've overcomplicated everything from our health to our businesses. And to be in a place where it's very simplified, very straightforward, and like you said, a place where we're all unlearning but also thriving, it just feels really aligned. And
Yeah.
that's been such a gift as I continue to do my own evolution in my own health and really in my business too, right? Because as I've shared, it's been a journey for me to figure out where am I going in business? How do I continue to rebuild myself from the ground up? Because I was in such a place where I felt like a fraud. Like, I felt like this maybe wasn't really the path that I was being called to, and I needed to do a reevaluation. But at the end of the day, it's really come down to evaluating what rooms am I getting in, as you talked
Yeah.
about on our last call, and who am I connecting with that have maybe gone before me, that can help me, that are mentoring me, that are also like guiding us and leading the way, but are also willing to get real and get honest and have these authentic conversations around women's health. I mean, Jenny, you talk all the time about how we need to be vulnerable in the service of other women, and that includes business, right? That includes business. And for me, I haven't really spoken very honestly and openly about my experience in the evolution of my business because I've been terrified, because I have
Mm-hmm.
felt like a fraud, because I felt like maybe what I had to say didn't matter. But the more I even learn about women's health, the more I'm learning that business and entrepreneurship and a mission that you might be on, that's very much a part of your health journey. And
Yeah.
how that feels in your day to day has to be addressed. And if it feels out of alignment, or if it makes you feel some kind of way mentally and emotionally that isn't uplifting and empowering and speaking kindness to yourself, then it needs to be addressed. It needs to be brought into the light. And that's why I feel so grateful to be able to have these conversations, because talking authentically about our experiences, but then also talking about how powerful and encouraging it is to be in an aligned space that has opportunity for tremendous growth, that can really be crafted into what you uniquely want, just like your unique health journey. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is something to be spoken about as much as possible.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. The other thing that I'll add in there too that I think is so powerful is I didn't realize this until, you know, I got really started to get involved in investigating this as an opportunity for me. I started to really value the feminine leadership behind the company. And I
Yeah.
think that that's something that I want to express here because Sarah Jensen, which is the co-CEO of Hugh and Grace, there's just such an amazing energy behind her form of leadership. I just came off of Elevate, which is our big conference a couple weeks ago. And there's not a single person in that room of 250 plus people that she didn't hug. She was literally, when I say on the ground level, I mean on the ground level. Like she came up behind me in the seats, gave me a big hug. There's just this sort of like feminine, nurturing side of leadership where they're really concerned about every I is dotted and every T is crossed for recognition. They recognize people who are doing, you came into a power 30 multiple times. Like we want to recognize you for that. You're recognized for showing up. You're recognized for doing the work. There's no strategies behind like, this is how I'm going to finagle my way to this next rank. Like that doesn't exist,
Right.
just based on how the comp plan is designed. And so just that energy in itself, like the fact that it's an established brand that just has a direct sales avenue, is really powerful. And I don't want to speak for Sarah, but I've literally heard her share this story a million times. She shared it on my podcast as well. She says she learned a lot about Brownie Weiss, which is the creator of the Tupperware. And she said that one of the most powerful things that she ever witnessed was how women felt appreciated and recognized in
Yeah.
that business model.
Yeah.
And it was something that they were missing maybe in their own lives, and how she wanted to be able to pay that forward with this type of opportunity. And then she and Ben actually spoke to that at our Elevate conference as well. And hearing Ben say the same thing about how, I wish you could have heard it. Like he shared this story about how Sarah herself had struggled with just her own image issues and just like really struggled in her own mental health. And it was funny because the question was asked to him, like, how is the woman you married different from the woman today? And he said his answer was, she's the same. She just didn't know it yet.
Yeah.
And he talked about her own evolution and watching her step into business and step into this empowerment and step into this ability to lead that he knew was there all along, that she really suffered from. And so really like from a grassroots level, like the CEO of the company has kind of gone through her own evolution, and so we do hear the side of like the infertility story and what brought them to endocrine disruption and all that. But this side of the story is what connects to my heart. And I know for me, in my previous business, I chased the recognition and I chased the accolades and I chased the ranks because I wasn't getting that. I wasn't getting that in my job. Maybe I didn't feel super appreciated. I know that I've gone through all the Tony Robbins stuff. I've worked through all this sort of mental trauma in my life. And I know that I was always craving recognition in my childhood. I was like the straight A student, the honor society, the president of the class. Like that's who I was. And because of that, I think I was sort of burned out into thinking that I just needed to work harder. And in this environment, it feels so different because it does feel like I'm working hard, but it's just coming so easy and so genuine. And from the top down, the leadership really matters. And so to not only feel recognized, technically speaking, but to be recognized from the CEO herself, to get a phone call from the CEO, to get text messages, like this is a different culture and different environment. And I think that needs to be noted as well. I love when women can just come together and drop all the drama and just say, hey, like, yes, we're going to crush it in business. We're going to crush it in social selling. We're going to crush it in empowering one another. And we are our own businesses. We are our own solopreneurs. And as you've said a million times, like this is a partnership that we can trust and one
Yeah.
that we can advocate to others. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for interviewing me, and then vice versa. I think this is going to be great content. I had several people reach out to me after the last episode, just saying, "Hey, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing, your experience." Both of us are forever grateful for what led us to each other ultimately, and to some amazing friendships, to personal growth, to health and wellness. But at the same time, like grateful for where we're going and the future of what's ahead. So awesome. Thank you for this, Erin.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Appreciate you.
All right, cool. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.